Hi, everyone. It has been so long since, I've still been here. We've still been doing the podcast, but this is the first time in a long time it's just been me. It's never really just me with her around, is it? But it's just me. I know that you've all been enjoying the podcast. We are loving doing the podcast for you. And I'm trying to get back into the swing of doing just our regular videos as well. Because to give you some behind the scenes updates, a lot has been going on. One of those a lot of things has been that I have hired an assistant who is going to be starting with us next week. And that person, that amazing new team member, is going to be helping out with things like social media, editing, uploading. So hopefully you'll be seeing a little bit more variety of content, podcast videos, a more up-to-date Instagram, more up-to-date everything. And yeah, it's just a really exciting development to have somebody starting with us who's going to be supporting me, supporting the team, making the business run more smoothly, and also obviously helping social media to run more smoothly as well. It's just been crazy busy with retreats that we're organizing and planning. We've got a retreat coming up in November. We've got a fully booked one in April, which is frighteningly close. And we also have a body neutrality workshop coming up at the end of April. I'll put some of the details here and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this video. But I was a guest on a podcast yesterday that's going to be coming out in March, and the topic of full recovery came up. In recovery versus fully recovered. And when that episode is available, I'll make sure that I share it across my social media platforms because it was a really, really great chat. It was a very different interview to other interviews I've done. I usually get a lot of like the same recovery and eating disorder questions. So I will definitely share that episode around because it is a bit of a new spin on my experience and my thoughts and about the space as well. But I wanted to come and dive a bit deeper into a topic that I think a lot of people wonder about or have concerns about or anxieties about, and that is full recovery, the pressure of full recovery as an endpoint to the recovery process. This topic obviously comes up in client work a lot. It also comes up in a lot of online recovery discourse. This sense of particularly individuals who are about to embark on the recovery process or who are traversing the recovery process, feeling this sense of overwhelm about full recovery being the end goal, and a lot of emphasis being put on the final destination and the full recovery end marker. And I think it's really important to add some nuance and some gray to this conversation because I've mentioned in previous videos that I feel like in even the treatment space and the professional space, we can get very, very black and white. We can get very, very perfectionistic and lose the sense of nuance and this sense of each person being an individual and how we show up to each conversation or each recovery path for that individual, and being able to have a variety of approaches or a variety of philosophies or a variety of kind of mindsets that might make the process more doable for somebody. And that includes how we talk about where we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. Now, I, in my treatment experience, was not told that full recovery was possible. I was in a framework with my therapist that really spoke to kind of like the in remission, always in recovery setup, right? Like that was my expectation, was that as hard as I was working at the hardest parts of my recovery, I was always going to be doing some percentage or degree of that for the rest of my life. And for a while, that was totally doable. That was fine. But for me, the idea of being in constant recovery and being in remission was actually detrimental. It was the thing that actually led to me almost going into full-on recovery burnout and then potentially relapsing a couple of years in, because I was at that time meeting all the markers of somebody who was fully recovered, but I was burning myself out by going through all the motions and analyzing every choice and overthinking everything and not trusting myself, not trusting my instinct, my intuition around food, around movement, around body, around anything. I felt like I had to be on high alert at all times, and I was. So for me personally, when I found out about full recovery, which was actually in large part thanks to this community, when I came on and told you honestly that I was really burning out and not doing so well and really just falling out of kind of going into kind of like, I guess, like a disillusioned kind of state with recovery. And you all pointed me towards this concept of full recovery. And when I read what it was, it made sense. As I said, I felt like I ticked those markers, and it showed me that I needed to relax and I needed to kind of like move through to the next phase of what this process was for me. So for me, I was the opposite. The concept of full recovery wasn't an overwhelming, paralyzing outcome. But to be fair, I didn't know it was a thing until I was like through a really, really decent chunk of pretty much like 99.9% of the work. The last bit was like the self-trust and, leaning on intuition kind of work. But for me, it would have been far more detrimental not to have that location on the map as an option for me to keep walking towards. On the other side, I do understand that if we put too much emphasis on full recovery, if your provider is bringing it up every session or using that as like your one motivator, as your one why, it can feel incredibly disempowering and incredibly overwhelming, as I said, where it really needs to be about what are we doing next? What is the next bit of freedom we can get? What is the next bit of progress we can see? What is the next bit of life that you get to enjoy? Because wherever you end up on the sort of recovery spectrum, as far as like where your process is heading, or if you are someone who feels that this process is going to continue always and you are going to be somebody who's in recovery, any amount of freedom or progress is an enormous accomplishment, regardless of where on that spectrum of progress you sit, regardless of how your particular story pans out. Anything that you can do to move forward and away from something which is so damaging and dangerous and isolating, any amount of joy, any amount of color that you can put back into an incredibly black and white experience is so commendable and amazing, and you should be so proud of it. My argument for keeping full recovery as part of what's possible, a destination that stays on the map, a conversation that stays on the table, is that very often as you move through this process, you have no concept of exactly what you are made of exactly what you are capable of. It is a prerequisite in recovery to feel like we are the one who won't get there. We are the one who will only get so far. We are the one who will figure out this whole recovery thing is a scam and we'll go back because our eating disorder is the better option. That's kind of part of the symptomatic profile for all of us, right? I always say the one cognition we all have in common, which is the I'm the unicorn cognition, means it can't possibly be true. So I think it's about striking a balance between meeting yourself where you are as you're making each step, celebrating each step, learning from each slip back, looking at what's working and what isn't, taking the summary of both and using that to refine the process and what you're going to do next. But in the back of your mind, until you really feel that you can confidently say, look, this in recovery for the rest of my life process works for me. This is going to keep me safe. This is going to keep me well. Or I am someone who is going to be in sort of like a harm reduction mode for as long as I can currently imagine. There is no shame in that. There is nothing wrong with that. But I think that people often don't reach the state of full recovery because they've been told it's not possible. They believe for themselves it's off the table for them and haven't unpacked maybe some of the very common understandable barriers to why you think that might be impossible for you. I encourage people to do whatever it is that, again, is going to make them safe and their life more worth living, but not be hindered by the fact that many of us don't believe that we're even going to get to the next stage, let alone the end stage. And hopefully, if you are working with a practitioner who believes in full recovery, as CCI accredited coaches do, we come from that philosophy of keeping it on the table, not making it a prerequisite, not forcing people, not pushing people, not guilting people, not shaming people if they feel that that is not applicable to them. We meet all clients where they are, regardless of what that might look like, other than like enabling eating disorder behaviors, obviously. We're going to challenge those. We're not going to just accept those. Being able to have a practitioner who is able to strike that balance of, we're just talking about the next week. That's what I tell clients when they're like, but Mia, what about when you ask me to? And what about when we get here? Or what about when we get there? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not part of that conversation. We're not having that conversation. We're talking about this week. We're talking about the flexible goals that we've set this week, adding this to your snack, reducing your movement by this, and seeing what happens. It's all an experiment. And then next week, we're going to look back on this week and go, what did we learn? What went well? What didn't go well? What can we take from both of those things and apply it to the goals that we're going to set this week and build on what we did last week? And if you say to me next week, Mia, I'm out, I hate this, and you slam the computer on me, I don't chase clients. I don't send them a million emails going, where are you? What happened? Are you coming back? Autonomy and agency always. You don't have to even decide next week what you're going to do or what you feel capable of or what you feel comfortable with, let alone making a commitment to like, yeah, I'm going to go and get to the top of this mountain and I'm going to live there forever. Recovery is and has to be by its very nature to make it work, whatever that end result of working looks like. It has to be incremental. It has to come in stages. It has to be even periods of stabilization. Holly and I have talked about this on the podcast, even entering stages or phases of recovery where you're like, you know what, I need to chill out here safely for a minute and get my breath back and acclimatize to life as it is now with how far I've come and what I've been able to accomplish. And now I just want to enjoy this for a second. And, you know, we certainly at Beyond Body don't take the approach of like, no, keep going. Like at all times, 110 kilometers an hour, you know, no excuses, no rest. That seems incredibly counterproductive to recovery when that's how so many of our eating disorders spoke to us. So I think if we can all look at some of the terminology or definitions or some of the expectations and some of the philosophies and approaches and realize you are an individual, you have your individual history, you will have an individual recovery, and you will have individual outcomes where even people who say that they're fully recovered, not everyone's lives are going to match up. Not everybody's experience of that will match up. It is about the individual. As professionals, we should be treating people as individuals, but you should be treating yourself as an individual as well in terms of how you talk to yourself about this process. Yes, we can take inspiration, we can take guidance, we can take clues, we can take information and apply it to who we are as people, what our goals are, where we see ourselves going. And where you see yourself going right now might be totally different to what you think is possible in 6 months. I think if we can take across the board with recovery an attitude of curiosity and just being open, because that doesn't mean commitment. That doesn't mean that you're signing in your blood being like, I will absolutely and I promise to. You don't have to do that at any stage of the process. It is your process. It is your life. I hope that adds some color to what can feel like a very, very black and white, oversimplified conversation about like it's either possible or impossible. I either will or I won't kind of thinking and mentality that we see a lot and hear a lot and I come across a lot. Now, the Body Neutrality Workshop is coming up on the 23rd of April, 2024. I have adjusted. I'm finally saying the right year, for today at least. I'm only running one of these this year because I'm not going to have time to do another workshop probably of any kind this year with retreats and new staff and expanding the business. So make sure that you jump onto that opportunity. This is without a doubt my favorite workshop to do because it's so practical. It is so important to have practical tools and skills for body image. Body image feels like such a nebulous, mysterious process. Like nobody has answers. This whole concept of like, we can't work on body image until people are at the end of the process is nonsense. Body image is one of the biggest contributors of distress. And I would say from my perspective, having worked with people for 7 years, it's probably 75% of the reason why people relapse. It's probably 75% of the reason why people freak out and stumble backwards, where they just don't have to. We can give people skills and tools and approaches to be able to make that process more tolerable and then to be able to start relating to their body in a much more accepting, calm, and neutral way. That's why it's called Body Neutrality. The clue's in the title. So it's a week together with 2 Facebook Lives at the start and the end of the week so that I can answer all your questions and interact with you and get to know you. And then there's the workbook that you work throughout the week, and that's all done in our exclusive Facebook group where I am in there all day, every day, answering your questions, helping you through the activities, helping you to unpack some of the realizations that you're coming to as you're applying some of those practical strategies and tools. And it's always actually a really beautiful place for people to get together and see how common these cognitions are, or these insecurities are, or these stressors are from a body image perspective. And it's really amazing to see people like link up and foster like lovely connections with each other around something that is so isolating. So I'll put that link in the description box below. Please come and join us, because like I said, I won't be running this again until 2025, and a bunch of the tickets have already gone. So much love to you all. We will be back with another podcast episode soon, and more videos and just more exciting stuff. I have missed you all. I have missed doing this. I can't believe that it didn't take me 2 hours to record this. Usually I'm just like, I've forgotten how to just talk, like not even just talk to a camera, just to talk as a human being. But we will be back, like I said, very soon with Hull, and just love this community. Just feeling very grateful. Life is busy, but it is great. And that is in large part because of all of you. So much love. Take care. See you soon. Bye, guys.